Daniel Carter stepped out of the elevator, adjusting his tailored navy blazer and checking his phone for the 100th time that night. Miami's skyline sparkled like 1,000 diamonds through the resort's glass doors, but he barely noticed. He was tired. Meetings, deals, and endless negotiations had drained him, and all he wanted now was the sanctuary of his luxurious suite. Swiping his keycard, he felt the familiar thrill of returning to his private world. But tonight, something felt off. He brushed the feeling aside, assuming it was the exhaustion talking. As the door swung open, a soft sob caught him off guard. The sound was quiet, almost fragile, and it froze him in his tracks. His eyes widened in disbelief. This wasn't his suite. The sleek marble floors and minimalist decor he had chosen for himself were replaced by a dimly lit room with mismatched furniture. A single lamp cast long shadows across the walls, and in the center, sitting on the floor with a small suitcase, was a young woman crying softly. Daniel's mind raced. Who are you?" He finally managed, his voice steady despite the shock. The woman looked up, startled, her green eyes wide and glistening with tears. She bit her lip, clearly unsure of how to respond. She wasn't threatening, but the fear in her expression told him she had been through something. Her hair was slightly messy, and she wore casual clothes that had seen better days. Daniel realized that the exhaustion he felt was nothing compared to the turmoil written all over her face. "My name is Ava Mitchell," she whispered, her voice trembling. I think I'm in the wrong room." She clutched the suitcase closer to her chest as if it were a shield. Daniel's initial shock softened into concern. He could see the desperation in her eyes. She seemed ordinary, vulnerable, completely out of place in this luxury resort. He glanced around, realizing that the room was not just dimly lit but sparsely furnished. The bed was unmade, the window opened slightly, and a cool breeze carried the scent of the ocean inside. Daniel stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him, trying not to appear threatening. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe. Tell me what happened." Ava wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand and shook her head. "I paid for a luxury package," she said, her voice breaking. "It was supposed to be for me and my daughter. But when we arrived, it wasn't what they promised. I ended up in the wrong section, and now I don't even know what to do." Daniel's heart sank. He knew the feeling of being betrayed by circumstances. But this was different. She had no one to lean on. Ava's suitcase spilled slightly open, revealing clothes, a small toy, and a few crumpled papers. Daniel noticed the meticulous way she had packed, despite her distress. She had tried to hold on to dignity in chaos. "Why didn't you ask for help?" Daniel asked softly, kneeling slightly so he wasn't towering over her. She shrugged, embarrassed. "I didn't want to bother anyone," she admitted. "I thought I could figure it out, but—" Her voice faltered and a fresh sob escaped. Daniel felt an unusual pull in his chest, a rare instinct to protect someone entirely unknown to him. For the first time that evening, Daniel allowed himself to pause, to really look at her. The dim light highlighted the delicate curve of her face, the resilience behind her tearful eyes, and the small lines of worry etched on her forehead. She was young, probably not much older than 30, but the weight she carried seemed decades heavier. He felt an unexpected surge of empathy. In his world of power and influence, he rarely encountered genuine vulnerability. This was real, and it demanded his attention, not his avoidance. Daniel took a step back and gestured toward the phone on the nightstand. "Do you want me to call the front desk?" "They can sort this out." Ava shook her head quickly, biting her lip. "No, please. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I just wanted a room for the night." Her words were small, almost a whisper, but Daniel could sense the exhaustion behind them. She had traveled far, carried hope, and arrived only to find disappointment. And yet she didn't ask for handouts, only a safe space. It struck him deeply. He looked around the room again. Everything was modest, yet it was clean. There was no indication of danger, only a misplaced sense of comfort that had been shattered for her. Daniel wondered how often people like Ava were overlooked in places like this, ordinary people with extraordinary struggles. He felt a rare impulse, one that had little to do with his wealth or status, the desire to help purely because it was the right thing. "Okay," he said finally. You can stay here for tonight. No questions asked. Ava's eyes widened, disbelief mixing with gratitude. For a moment, silence fell between them. The only sounds were the soft waves outside, the window and Ava's occasional sniffle. Daniel realized he had no idea what the next step should be. He wasn't used to navigating moments like this without a business plan or a strategy. Yet something about her presence demanded patience, kindness, and perhaps a human touch that money couldn't provide. He sat on the edge of the bed, keeping his distance, but offering a semblance of reassurance. Ava adjusted her position, clutching her small daughter's toy, and nodded quietly. Daniel finally broke the silence. "You're probably thinking this is all some big mistake," he said, trying to lighten the mood. Ava gave a small, humorless laugh. "You could say that," she replied. The tension eased slightly, replaced by the shared acknowledgement of their odd situation. Daniel realized that sometimes life orchestrated encounters with perfect precision, moments where two people's paths crossed in ways that seemed accidental but were anything but. This was one of those moments. As the night deepened, Daniel and Ava exchanged a few more words, sharing stories about their lives in fragments. Ava spoke of her daughter Lila and the dreams she carried for her future. Daniel, in turn, shared anecdotes from his relentless climb to success, but softened by a vulnerability he rarely revealed. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't the untouchable CEO. He was simply Daniel, a man witnessing someone else's struggle and compelled to act. The room, dim and misplaced though it was, became a space of unexpected connection by the time he left the room to check on the front desk and confirm her reservation for the night. Daniel felt a subtle shift within himself. This encounter, brief and unplanned, had stirred something he hadn't felt in years: humility, empathy, and a curious sense of responsibility. He realized that wealth and power were meaningless if they didn't come with the capacity to touch lives beyond one's own. Ava Mitchell, sitting quietly on the floor with her suitcase and tear-stained cheeks, had unknowingly reminded him of something profoundly human: hope, even in the wrong room. Daniel returned to the room after speaking with the front desk, a small smile forming as he pushed the door open. Ava looked up, her eyes cautiously hopeful. "Everything's sorted for tonight," he said softly. "You have a proper room now." She blinked, a mixture of relief and disbelief crossing her face. Daniel noticed the exhaustion in her posture, the slight tremble in her hands. He gestured for her to follow him, helping her lift the small suitcase. Lila, her tiny daughter, peeked from behind her mother, clutching a stuffed bunny wide-eyed and shy. As they walked down the quiet hallway, Daniel could feel the tension easing. Ava whispered her thanks, her voice barely audible over the soft carpeted steps. Lila's small hand slipped into hers, and Daniel couldn't help but notice the innocence and vulnerability in the child's gaze. The hotel corridor stretched before them, luxurious and pristine, a stark contrast to the chaos Ava had endured earlier. Daniel realized that wealth and privilege could create comfort, but they rarely prepared a person for raw human struggle. Tonight, he was seeing life differently. Once inside the new suite, Ava breathed deeply, her shoulders relaxing for the first time that evening. The room was spacious, elegant, and warm, with soft lighting and a plush king-sized bed. Lila ran toward a corner where a small toy chest awaited, her laughter light and pure. Daniel couldn't help but smile at the sound, a moment of innocence cutting through the tension. Ava sat on the edge of the bed, finally allowing herself to rest. I can't thank you enough," she murmured. Daniel shook his head. "No thanks needed, just take care of yourself and her tonight." The night grew quieter, and Daniel lingered near the doorway, unsure if he should leave or stay. He had come here expecting solitude, not an encounter that demanded empathy. Yet something about Ava's vulnerability and courage drew him in. She hadn't asked for charity. She simply needed safety and understanding. Daniel, accustomed to controlling boardrooms and contracts, felt powerless in a new, unfamiliar way. He realized that compassion required patience and attentiveness, not money or influence. Watching Ava tuck Lila into the bed, singing softly to calm her, Daniel recognized that some acts of kindness were far more meaningful than any business victory. Ava glanced at Daniel, uncertainty flickering across her face. "You don't have to wait here," she said. "I can manage." Daniel shook his head, taking a small step closer. It's okay. I want to make sure you both are safe tonight. Lila yawned and nestled against her mother, her small hand brushing Daniel's as he adjusted the blanket. He felt a warmth he hadn't expected, a quiet satisfaction that had nothing to do with wealth. The room, dimly lit by the lamp, seemed to hold a fragile calm. Daniel realized that his presence, simple and unobtrusive, was enough to offer reassurance. As Ava shared fragments of her story, Daniel listened intently. She spoke of the online scam that had led them here, of long hours working 2 jobs to support Lila, of dreams deferred but never abandoned. Her voice trembled at times, yet carried a quiet strength that amazed him. Daniel, in turn, opened up slightly about the pressures of his life, the loneliness hidden beneath the opulence, the relentless pace that often left him hollow. For the first time, he felt an unusual connection with another person, a bridge formed between 2 very different worlds, yet bound by shared humanity. Hours passed, and the night deepened. Daniel offered to order room service, but Ava declined politely, insisting they could manage with what little they had. He marveled at her resilience, the grace with which she carried herself despite adversity. Watching her tuck Lila in again, Daniel thought about how easily life could have broken her, yet she had held on. Something stirred within him, a desire to protect, to provide, and perhaps to understand life outside boardrooms and contracts. He realized this unexpected encounter was teaching him lessons wealth never could: patience, empathy, and the power of genuine human connection. Lila, now calm and dozing, clutched her stuffed bunny tightly. Ava finally sank onto a chair, exhaustion etched on her face. Daniel stood nearby, unsure of what else he could do. "You're safe here tonight," he said quietly. "No one will bother you." Ava nodded, gratitude mingled with vulnerability. Daniel noticed the subtle tension in her shoulders, the way she kept her eyes alert despite the comfort of the new room. He realized that trust was fragile, often earned in small, quiet moments. And tonight he had the rare privilege of witnessing that trust begin to form. Daniel felt a sudden urge to offer more than reassurance. He pulled out his phone, researching local services that could help Ava and Lila during their stay. Hotels, community centers, even legal aid for victims of scams. He realized that one night of safety could extend into a longer journey of security and stability. Ava watched him silently, initially unsure of his intentions. But as he explained the resources, the room filled with hope, quiet, tentative hope, fragile yet real. For the first time in weeks, Ava allowed herself to imagine a future beyond immediate survival. As the early morning light began to filter through the curtains, Daniel prepared to leave. "Rest now," he said gently. "I'll check in later to make sure everything is okay." Ava smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting exhaustion and gratitude. Lila stirred slightly, murmuring a sleepy thank you in her small voice. Daniel felt an unexpected tug at his heart. He had come to the resort seeking solitude, but he was leaving with something far more profound, a connection that reminded him of what truly mattered. In helping Ava and Lila, he had rediscovered a piece of himself. Before stepping out, Daniel looked back one last time. Ava and Lila were finally settled, the room quiet and warm. He realized that fate had placed him here, in the wrong room, for a reason. What had begun as an accidental encounter had become an opportunity to make a tangible difference in someone's life. Daniel walked down the hallway, a newfound clarity guiding him. True success wasn't measured in wealth or status, but in the lives you touched and the hope you restored. That night, the millionaire CEO understood a truth money couldn't buy.